What if the people trying to control you are not as powerful as you think? They may not need to threaten you. They may not need to attack you. They only need to understand you better than you understand them. They know what makes you angry. They know what makes you insecure. They know what makes you chase. They know which words make you defensive and which silence makes you desperate for their attention. And the most dangerous part, you may be revealing all of it without realizing it. In the next few minutes, you are going to learn 5 rules that can completely change the way you deal with people, not by becoming louder, not by becoming aggressive, not by trying to control everyone around you, but by becoming harder to read, harder to provoke, and almost impossible to manipulate. Because once you understand what people want, what they fear, and what makes them react, you stop playing their game and you start seeing the game itself. Most people believe power belongs to the loudest person in the room, the most intelligent person, or the person with the most authority. They are wrong. Real power often belongs to the person who can remain calm while everyone else reveals themselves. If you want to outsmart someone, your first mistake is trying to prove that you are smarter than them. The moment you enter that contest, you have already entered their game. You become emotional. You become predictable. You start reacting to their words instead of studying their intentions. The smarter approach is to stop asking, "How do I defeat this person?" and start asking, "What does this person want?" Every person carries a hidden motive: recognition, control, approval, revenge, security, attention, status, money, love, fear of humiliation, fear of losing influence. Once you understand what someone desperately wants, their behavior becomes easier to predict. And prediction is power rule number 1. Never reveal your entire hand. One of the easiest ways to lose control in any situation is to explain yourself too much. You tell people what you are planning, why you are doing it, what you are afraid of, what you hope to achieve, and what you intend to do next. You believe honesty makes you trustworthy, but excessive transparency can make you predictable. When people know exactly what you want, they know exactly where to apply pressure. Think about negotiation. If the other person knows the absolute minimum you are willing to accept, they have information you cannot take back. If they know you desperately need the deal, they can make you wait. If they know you are emotionally attached to the outcome, they can raise the price. Silence protects possibilities. You do not need to lie. You simply need to stop volunteering information that has no reason to be given. Let people wonder. Let them interpret. Let them underestimate you. There is enormous strength in being difficult to read. The person who explains every move becomes a prisoner of their own explanation. They become concerned with maintaining an image instead of pursuing an objective. But the person who keeps their intentions private can change direction without announcing the change. This is why restraint is more powerful than performance. Rule number 2, control your emotions before someone else learns to control them for you. Your anger is information. Your jealousy is information. Your impatience is information. Your insecurity is information. And if another person can consistently trigger these emotions in you, they have discovered a lever. Imagine someone knows exactly how to make you angry. Every time they want you to make a mistake, they provoke you. You respond immediately. You send the message. You raise your voice. You reveal your frustration. Later, when the emotion disappears, you realize you gave them exactly what they wanted. The problem was not that they were stronger. The problem was that you handed them the controls. Emotional discipline changes the entire game. When someone insults you, do not immediately defend yourself. When someone ignores you, do not chase. When someone tries to provoke you, do not perform your anger for them. Pause. Observe, ask yourself what they are trying to make you do. That single question can transform conflict into information. People often reveal more when they believe they have emotional control over you. Their provocations become experiments. They push and you react. They push again and you react again. Eventually they learn your pattern, break the pattern. The person who cannot predict your emotional response cannot easily manipulate you through emotion. Rule number 3, make people reveal themselves. You do not always need to interrogate someone to understand them. Sometimes all you need to do is create space and watch what they naturally do. People reveal their priorities through repetition. Watch how someone behaves when they have nothing to gain from you. Watch how they treat people beneath them. Watch how they respond when someone else succeeds. Watch what happens when they are denied something. Watch whether their words and actions match. Words are cheap because words can be designed. Behavior is harder to fake consistently. If someone constantly talks about loyalty but disappears when you need them, you have your answer. If someone claims to support your success but becomes distant whenever you receive recognition, pay attention. If someone constantly tells you how honest they are, but you repeatedly catch them manipulating small situations, do not become distracted by their declarations. Study patterns. One isolated action can be explained away. A repeated pattern is character speaking. This is where patience becomes an advantage. Most people are desperate for immediate conclusions. They meet someone and instantly decide whether that person is good, bad, trustworthy, or dangerous. Do not rush. Let time collect evidence for you. You will often learn more by watching someone for 6 months than by listening to them for 6 hours. And when people believe you are simply listening, they often become careless. They fill the silence. They tell stories. They justify themselves. They reveal frustrations. They expose what they envy. They reveal who they fear. They tell you what they secretly want. You do not need to force information from people. Give them room to provide it voluntarily. Rule number 4. Never fight on someone else's terms. This is one of the most important principles of strategic thinking. If someone is trying to drag you into an argument, ask yourself why you are accepting the invitation. If someone wants to compete with you publicly, ask whether winning that competition actually benefits you. If someone wants you to react immediately, ask why they need your immediate reaction. The battlefield matters. A skilled player does not simply ask whether they can win. They ask where the game should be played. Suppose someone is better than you at arguing. Stop arguing. Suppose someone is better than you at public confrontation. Do not give them a public confrontation. Suppose someone uses emotional pressure. Become calm. Suppose someone thrives on chaos. Become organized. The goal is not to become better at playing every game. The goal is to become selective about which games you play. You can walk away from a contest without losing. You can refuse an argument without being weak. You can ignore an insult without surrendering your dignity. You can decline a challenge without accepting someone else's definition of success. There is a strange psychological effect here. When you stop reacting to another person's frame, they often become frustrated because they no longer know how to control the interaction. They expected resistance, they expected anger, they expected fear. Instead, they received nothing, and nothing can be extremely powerful. Rule number 5. Build power that does not depend on anyone's permission. The ultimate form of dominance is not controlling other people. It is becoming difficult to control. If your confidence depends on praise, someone can control you with criticism. If your happiness depends entirely on one person, they possess enormous leverage. If your financial survival depends on one source, that source has power over you. If your identity depends on being admired, rejection becomes a weapon against you. The solution is independence. Develop skills, build knowledge, create options, strengthen your finances, protect your reputation, maintain your relationships. Learn to be alone without becoming desperate for attention. The more alternatives you have, the less vulnerable you become to manipulation. Power often comes from options. A person with only one choice is easy to pressure. A person with 5 choices can negotiate. A person with 10 choices can walk away. This is why your goal should not be to dominate every person you meet. Your goal should be to develop enough internal and external strength that you do not need to dominate anyone. When you no longer desperately need approval, people lose one of their strongest weapons against you. When you no longer desperately need a relationship, you can see the relationship clearly. But when you no longer desperately need a particular opportunity, you can negotiate without fear. When you no longer need to prove that you are powerful, you become far more difficult to manipulate. The deepest form of strategic intelligence is therefore not aggression. It is control over your tongue, control over your emotions, control over your attention, control over your reactions, control over your desires, and control over the situations you choose to enter. Remember this: you do not need to know everything about everyone. You only need to understand enough to recognize patterns. You do not need to defeat every opponent. You only need to avoid becoming their instrument. You do not need to announce your strategy. You need to execute it. And you do not need to make everyone fear you. You need to become someone who cannot easily be pushed, rushed, provoked, deceived, or emotionally controlled. Because once you stop giving people automatic access to your emotions, your plans, your weaknesses, and your attention, the entire balance of power begins to change. The person who watches carefully sees what others miss. The person who waits notices what others reveal. The person who controls themselves becomes difficult for others to control, and the person who understands human behavior does not need to chase power constantly. Power begins to follow them. The first rule of strategic power is simple: control what you reveal. Most people give away far too much without realizing it. They talk when silence would serve them better. They explain their decisions before anyone asks. They reveal their plans to people who have not earned the right to know them. They expose their insecurities in the hope that others will understand them. They announce their ambitions before they have built anything. They tell people what they are going to do, where they are going, what they fear, who they dislike, what they need, and what they hope will happen. Then they are surprised when someone uses that information against them. Information creates leverage. The more another person knows about your intentions, emotional triggers, weaknesses, desires, and limitations, the easier it becomes for them to predict your behavior. And once your behavior becomes predictable, you become easier to influence. A person does not need to be more intelligent than you to manipulate you. They simply need to understand what makes you react. Imagine someone knows that you desperately want their approval. They can withhold it whenever they want something from you. Imagine someone knows you are afraid of rejection. They can threaten to leave whenever they want you to compromise. Imagine someone knows you are obsessed with proving yourself. They can challenge your ego and make you act impulsively. Imagine someone knows exactly what opportunity you need. They can use your urgency to negotiate from a stronger position. Your weaknesses become dangerous when they are placed in the hands of someone who understands how to activate them. This does not mean becoming dishonest. It does not mean creating elaborate lies or pretending to be someone you are not. It means developing discipline over your words. You can be honest without being completely exposed. You can be kind without explaining everything. You can be genuine without making your entire inner world available to everyone around you. There is a difference between authenticity and total transparency. Authenticity means your actions are aligned with your values. Transparency means other people have access to information about you. These are not the same thing. You can remain authentic while keeping certain intentions private. Think about the most important decisions you have ever made. Did everyone need to know about them before you acted? Did you need permission from everyone around you? Did announcing your plan make the plan stronger, or did it simply create more opinions, more resistance, and more opportunities for interference? Sometimes the smartest move is to work quietly. When you announce a goal too early, you invite people into a process they do not understand. They may criticize it, they may discourage you, they may compete with you. They may secretly hope you fail. They may even try to imitate what you are doing before you have had enough time to establish an advantage. There is another psychological trap hidden inside public declarations. Once you tell everyone what you intend to accomplish, and you begin protecting the image of the person who will accomplish it instead of doing the difficult work required to actually accomplish it. You become concerned about what people will think if you change direction. You become afraid to abandon a bad strategy because you already announced it. Your own words become a prison. Quiet execution creates flexibility. If you keep your plans private, you can adapt. You can change your strategy. You can abandon an idea that no longer works. You can take an unexpected opportunity without having to explain why you changed direction. You remain free because nobody is holding you accountable to an identity you publicly constructed. This is especially important when dealing with people who are competitive or insecure. Not everyone who asks about your plans is genuinely interested in helping you. Some people are gathering information. They want to know what you are building, who you are connected to, how much you are earning, what your next move is, and where you are vulnerable. Learn to recognize the difference between curiosity and genuine concern. You do not owe everyone an answer. When someone asks, "What are you planning next?" you can simply say, "I have a few things I am working on." When someone asks, "How much are you making?" you do not have to provide a number. When someone asks, "Why are you leaving?" you do not have to give them a complete psychological explanation. When someone asks, "What are you going to do about this?" you can say, "I am still thinking about it." Simple answers protect complicated plans. People often underestimate the power of an incomplete answer. They think they need to fill every silence because silence feels uncomfortable. But silence is not weakness. Silence creates space, and inside that space, other people often reveal themselves. When you stop rushing to answer, people may continue talking. They may clarify their question. They may reveal why they wanted the information. They may even expose their own assumptions. The person who talks first often gives away more than they intended. This is why listening is such a powerful strategic skill. Instead of thinking about what you are going to say next, pay attention to what the other person is revealing. Listen for repeated themes. Listen for emotional changes. Listen for what they avoid discussing. Listen for contradictions between what they claim to value and what they actually pursue. People reveal themselves constantly, but most people are too busy trying to be heard to control your reactions as carefully as you control your words. Someone may intentionally provoke you because they want information. They insult you and watch your face. They question your ability and watch whether you become defensive. They criticize your decision and watch whether you start explaining yourself. They mention another person's success and watch whether jealousy appears. Every reaction teaches people something. If you become visibly angry every time someone challenges you, they learn where your button is. If you become desperate whenever someone pulls away, they learn how to control your attention. If you become defensive whenever someone questions your competence, they learn how to make you prove yourself. Do not give away the map to your emotional weaknesses. This does not mean suppressing every emotion. It means deciding when and how those emotions deserve a response. You can feel anger without displaying it immediately. You can feel fear without allowing fear to make your decision. You can feel jealousy without turning it into behavior that exposes your insecurity. The pause is your protection. Before responding, create distance between stimulus and action. Ask yourself what response would serve your interests rather than your ego. This small delay can completely change the outcome of an interaction. The person who provokes you wants an immediate reaction because immediate reactions are often emotional. They are rarely strategic. If you refuse to give them that reaction, they lose information about what is happening inside you. There is also a danger in trying too hard to appear mysterious. Some people hear the principle of secrecy and become unnecessarily secretive about everything. That creates suspicion rather than strength. Strategic silence is not about becoming cold or distant. It is about understanding that access to you should have levels. Not everyone deserves the same level of information. A stranger does not need the same information as a friend. A casual acquaintance does not need the same information as someone who has repeatedly demonstrated loyalty. A competitor certainly does not need access to the same information you share with someone you trust completely. Think of information as a form of access. The more important the information, the more carefully you should choose who receives it. Trust should be earned through patterns, not granted through words. Someone saying, "You can trust me," proves almost nothing. Their behavior over time proves far more. Watch what they do with small pieces of information before giving them important ones. If they constantly gossip about other people, assume they will eventually gossip about you. If they cannot keep someone else's confidence, do not expect them to protect yours. Your private information should not become social currency. Another powerful principle is to avoid advertising your weaknesses unnecessarily. Everyone has vulnerabilities, but there is a difference between acknowledging your weaknesses privately and broadcasting them publicly. If you constantly tell people what you cannot do, what scares you, what makes you insecure, or how badly you need something, you may unintentionally teach them how to pressure you. Protect your desperation most carefully. Need creates urgency, and urgency reduces strategic freedom. When someone knows you desperately need their approval, their cooperation, their money, their relationship, or their opportunity, they know you are less likely to walk away. The goal is not to pretend you need nothing. The goal is to build enough independence that you can make decisions without desperation controlling you. This is why privacy and independence are connected. The less you need to explain yourself, the less you need other people to validate your choices. The less you need their validation, the less information they have to manipulate you. And the less information they have to manipulate you, the more freedom you retain. There will always be people who demand explanations from you simply because they want control. They will ask why you changed, why you're quiet, why you did not respond, why you are spending less time with them, why you made a different decision. You do not have to turn every boundary into a courtroom defense. Sometimes the strongest answer is a calm decision followed by very few words. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to keep your next move private. You are allowed to say no without writing an essay explaining why. You are allowed to leave a situation without proving that the other person was wrong. You are allowed to build something quietly before anyone sees the result, and you are allowed to let people underestimate you while you continue working. The world rewards results far more reliably than announcements, so become careful with your words. Speak when speaking creates value. Remain silent when silence protects your position. Listen when others are revealing themselves. Keep your plans flexible. Protect your vulnerabilities. Do not give emotional reactions to people who are testing your boundaries. And above all, remember that privacy is not weakness. It is the space where strategy develops before the world gets a chance to interfere. The second rule is to master your emotional reactions, because the moment another person can predict exactly what will make you angry, insecure, jealous, afraid, or desperate, they possess a certain degree of power over you. Most people think manipulation begins with complicated psychological tricks, but often it begins with something much simpler. Someone discovers what makes you react, and then they learn how to press that button at the right moment. Your emotions are not your enemy. They are signals. They tell you something about yourself, about the situation, and sometimes about the person standing in front of you. Anger can tell you that a boundary has been crossed. Fear can warn you about danger. Jealousy can reveal an insecurity or an unmet desire. Anxiety can tell you that something feels uncertain. The problem begins when you confuse feeling something with having to immediately act on it. Feeling is automatic. Action is a choice. That difference is where your power begins. Think about how easily people can be controlled when they are emotionally triggered. Someone insults them and they immediately respond. Someone ignores their message and they send 3 more. Someone receives recognition and they become jealous. Someone challenges their intelligence and suddenly they feel compelled to prove themselves. Someone threatens to leave and they begin begging. In each situation, the external person did not physically control them. They simply created a stimulus and watched the reaction. This is one of the most important lessons in human behavior. People who understand your emotional triggers and can influence your decisions without ever giving you a direct command. If someone knows you cannot tolerate disrespect, they may provoke you into unnecessary conflicts. If they know you fear abandonment, they may withdraw attention whenever they want compliance. If they know you desperately want recognition, they can offer praise and remove it whenever they want to control your behavior. The stronger the emotional dependency, the stronger the leverage. This is why emotional discipline is not about becoming emotionless. It is about refusing to become predictable under pressure. Imagine 2 people facing the same insult. The first immediately becomes angry, raises his voice, and begins defending himself. The second pauses, observes the intention behind the insult, and decides whether a response is even necessary. The second person has created distance between the event and the reaction. That distance is power. Most people live with almost no distance between what happens and what they do. Something happens, they react. Someone speaks, they answer. Someone provokes, they attack. Someone withdraws, they chase. Their lives become a chain of automatic responses. Strategic people interrupt that chain. They create a pause. The pause does not need to be dramatic. It can be 2 seconds. It can be taking a breath before answering a message. It can be waiting an hour before responding to an accusation. It can be sleeping on a major decision instead of making it while angry. That pause allows the emotional intensity to decrease and the strategic mind to return. Never make your most important decisions while experiencing your strongest emotions. Anger wants immediate revenge. Fear wants immediate escape. Desire wants immediate satisfaction. Jealousy wants immediate comparison. Pride wants immediate validations. Strategy wants time. Time allows information to appear. Time allows people to reveal whether their words were serious or emotional. Time allows you to see consequences that were invisible during the first moment. This is why patience is such a powerful weapon. When someone is trying to provoke you, they often want speed. They want you to respond before you think. They want you to defend yourself before you understand the accusation. They want you to make a decision while your emotions are elevated. Do not give them that advantage. When you feel yourself becoming emotionally activated, ask one question. What are they trying to make me do? That question changes your position. Instead of being inside the emotion, you become an observer of the interaction. You begin studying the situation rather than simply experiencing it. If someone insults you, perhaps they want you to become defensive. If someone ignores you, perhaps they want you to chase. If someone suddenly praises you, perhaps they want something. If someone creates jealousy, perhaps they want your attention. If someone threatens you with leaving, perhaps they want control. You do not need to assume malicious intent every time, but you should learn to recognize patterns. People who repeatedly discover that emotional pressure works will naturally continue using it. If you respond to manipulation with more emotion, you strengthen the manipulator's strategy. If you respond with calmness, you force them to find another method. This is why consistency matters. Suppose someone learns that insulting you always creates an argument. They now have a reliable method of controlling your attention. But if one day you simply look at them, remain calm, and continue with what you were doing, the pattern breaks. They may try again. You remain calm. They may increase the pressure. You remain calm. Eventually, they discover that the old method no longer produces the desired result. The behavior loses its reward. This principle applies to relationships, workplaces, negotiations, friendships, and conflicts. Do not reward behavior you want to stop. If someone constantly creates drama and receives hours of your attention afterward, the drama is being reinforced. If someone repeatedly disrespects you and you respond by begging them to stay, they learn that disrespect gives them more control. If someone repeatedly threatens to leave and you immediately surrender your boundaries, they learn that the threat works. Your reaction teaches people how to treat you. This does not mean becoming cruel. It means becoming consistent. A calm boundary is often more powerful than an emotional argument. You can say, I am not continuing this conversation while we are speaking like this. Then stop. You do not need 10 minutes of explanation. You do not need to prove that you are right. You do not need to defeat the other person verbally. Your behavior becomes the message. Another major emotional trap is the need to prove yourself. Someone questions your intelligence, and you immediately feel compelled to demonstrate it. Someone doubts your ability, and you rush to show them what you can do. Someone criticizes your success, and you begin listing your achievements. This is exactly how ego becomes a leash. The moment you become obsessed with proving yourself, another person can control your attention simply by questioning you. The strongest response to many challenges is not explanation. It is results. If someone thinks you are incapable, let your work answer them. If someone misunderstands you intentionally, do not waste your life correcting every perception. If someone wants you to prove that you deserve respect, ask yourself why their approval matters so much. People who desperately need to be understood often become easy to manipulate. They explain, they justify, they defend, they argue. They reveal more and more information in an attempt to change someone's perception. And the other person simply watches. You do not need everyone to understand you. You need to understand yourself, know what matters to you, know what you will tolerate, know what you will walk away from. Know which criticism contains useful information and which criticism is simply designed to provoke you. Not every opinion deserves your emotional energy. One of the greatest forms of emotional freedom is learning that you can hear something without absorbing it. Someone can dislike you. Someone can misunderstand you. Someone can criticize you. Someone can underestimate you. Someone can talk about you, and none of those things automatically require a reaction. Your attention is a resource. Spend it carefully. Every time you react emotionally to something meaningless, you give a piece of your attention to someone who may not deserve it. Imagine how powerful you become when you stop responding to every notification, every insult, every rumor, every comparison, every provocation. You become harder to distract. And a person who is difficult to distract is difficult to control. The goal is not to eliminate emotion. That is impossible, and it would not even be desirable. Emotion can provide energy, intuition, creativity, passion, and courage. The goal is to place emotion under command. Let anger tell you that something matters, but do not let anger choose your strategy. Let fear alert you, but do not let fear decide your future. Let jealousy reveal what you desire, but do not let jealousy turn you against another person's success. Let pride remind you of your standards, but do not let pride prevent you from admitting a mistake. Let desire motivate you, but do not let desire make you desperate. When you can experience an emotion without becoming its servant, you gain a level of freedom that most people never develop. You begin responding instead of reacting. You begin watching instead of immediately participating. You begin asking better questions. You begin seeing the hidden structure behind emotional situations. And eventually, people notice something different about you. They cannot easily push you. They cannot easily rush you. They cannot easily provoke you. They cannot easily make you chase them. They cannot easily make you prove yourself. They cannot easily predict what you will do when pressured. That uncertainty creates respect because people understand, consciously or unconsciously, that emotional control makes you difficult to manipulate. The person who controls their reactions does not need to dominate every room. They simply refuse to surrender control of themselves. And once you stop giving other people the ability to decide what you feel, when you react, how quickly you respond, and what actions you take under pressure, you begin to take back the most important territory you will ever control. Your own mind, the third rule, is to study people instead of judging them, because judgment gives you conclusions while observation gives you information. Most people make decisions about others far too quickly. They meet someone, hear a few words, see a few actions, and immediately create a story about who that person is. They decide who is loyal, who is dangerous, who is intelligent, who is weak, who is confident, who is trustworthy. Then they spend the rest of the relationship defending that first impression instead of watching for evidence that might prove it wrong. Strategic thinking requires a different approach. Do not rush to decide what someone is. Study what they repeatedly do. Human beings are rarely as simple as they appear. Someone can be charming and selfish. Someone can be quiet and extremely ambitious. Someone can appear confident while secretly depending on constant approval. Someone can speak about loyalty while constantly looking for opportunities to benefit themselves. Someone can criticize attention-seeking people while secretly craving recognition. The surface is often a performance. The pattern underneath is what matters. This is why observation is more valuable than listening to promises. Words are easy to manufacture. People can tell you exactly what you want to hear. They can describe themselves as honest, loyal, humble, generous, disciplined, successful, or confident. But anyone can create an attractive description of themselves. Behavior requires consistency. If you want to understand someone, watch what they do when there is nothing obvious to gain. Watch how they treat people who cannot help them. Watch how they behave when they are disappointed. Watch how they respond when someone else receives attention. Watch how they react when they are told no. Watch how they handle criticism. Watch how they behave when they have power. These moments reveal far more than carefully chosen words. A person may be polite to someone they need and rude to someone they consider insignificant. That difference tells you something. A person may celebrate your success publicly, but become strangely distant afterward. That tells you something. A person may constantly talk about fairness until fairness requires them to sacrifice something personally. That tells you something. The goal is not to become suspicious of everyone. The goal is to become observant enough that you do not have to rely entirely on what people claim about themselves. One of the greatest mistakes people make is confusing confidence with character. Someone can be extremely charismatic and still be unreliable. Someone can speak beautifully and still have poor intentions. Someone can make you feel understood while quietly gathering information about you. Charm is not evidence. Confidence is not evidence. Popularity is not evidence. Consistency is evidence. Look for patterns over time. A single action can be misleading. A person can have a bad day. They can make a mistake. They can respond poorly under unusual circumstances. But repeated behavior begins to reveal something deeper. If someone repeatedly breaks promises, stop focusing on the explanations and study the pattern. If someone repeatedly creates conflict and then presents themselves as the victim, study the pattern. If someone repeatedly becomes jealous when others succeed, study the pattern. If someone repeatedly disappears when responsibility appears, study the pattern. Perturds reduce uncertainty. You do not need to hate someone to recognize their pattern. You do not need to expose them. You do not need to confront them. You simply adjust your expectations. This is a major advantage because once you understand how someone behaves, you can stop being surprised by them. Surprise creates emotional reactions. Prediction creates control. Suppose you know that someone becomes aggressive whenever they feel embarrassed. The next time they are challenged publicly, you are not shocked by their reaction. You already understand the pattern. Suppose you know someone becomes distant whenever they feel insecure. Their withdrawal does not automatically make you panic. You recognize the behavior and avoid reacting impulsively. Understanding patterns protects your emotions. It also protects your decisions. Another important principle is to study what people envy. Envy often reveals desire more honestly than words do. Listen carefully when someone constantly criticizes another person's success. What exactly bothers them? Is it the money, the attention, the freedom, the confidence, the influence, the relationships, the recognition? People sometimes reveal their own ambitions through the things they cannot tolerate seeing in others. The person who constantly mocks successful entrepreneurs may secretly desire financial independence. The person who criticizes confident people may feel threatened by confidence. The person who dismisses someone else's popularity may secretly wish for the same recognition. This does not mean every criticism comes from envy. It means repeated emotional reactions deserve attention. Emotion is information. When someone reacts disproportionately to something small, ask yourself why. Why did that particular subject create such a strong response? Why did they become defensive? Why did they suddenly change the topic? Why did they attack the person instead of addressing the idea? Why did they become unusually interested when money, status, or influence was mentioned? The intensity of a reaction can sometimes reveal the importance of what is being protected. This is why you should watch contradictions. A person says they value honesty, but they constantly hide information. They say they hate drama, but they are always at the center of conflict. They say they want independence, but they constantly seek approval. They say they do not care about status, but they repeatedly compare themselves with people above them. Contradictions are not necessarily proof of evil. They are clues. The mistake is not noticing that humans are complicated. The mistake is pretending they are not. People often act according to competing desires. Someone may genuinely care about you while also feeling jealous of you. Someone may want you to succeed while simultaneously wishing they were receiving the attention you receive. Someone may respect you while still wanting your position. Human motives can coexist. You do not have to reduce someone to a single label. You simply need to understand the forces influencing their behavior. This is where patience becomes a strategic advantage. Do not demand immediate certainty. Let people show you who they are. Time creates evidence. When someone first meets you, they may consciously or unconsciously present the version of themselves they think will create the best impression. Over time, maintaining that image becomes difficult. Stress appears, competition appears, disappointment appears, temptation appears, pressure reveals structure. Watch people under pressure. A calm person under normal circumstances tells you little. A calm person when things go wrong tells you much more. A loyal person when loyalty costs them something tells you much more than someone who is loyal when loyalty is convenient. A generous person when resources are limited tells you more than someone generous when they have plenty. A disciplined person when nobody is watching tells you more than someone disciplined when an audience is present. Character becomes visible when the reward for pretending disappears. Another powerful form of observation is watching what people do with information. If you tell someone something private and they immediately share it with someone else, you have learned something valuable. If someone constantly tells you other people's secrets, assume they may eventually tell yours. If someone uses private information to embarrass others, understand that information is a weapon in their hands. Do not ignore how people handle trust. Small betrayals often predict larger ones. You should also study how people respond to boundaries. Say no to something minor. Watch what happens. A healthy person may be disappointed but can respect the decision. A controlling person may pressure you. A manipulative person may guilt you. An insecure person may interpret the boundary as rejection. An entitled person may act as though your boundary is an insult. Your boundaries become diagnostic tools. They reveal how people behave when they cannot get what they want from you. And that is one of the most important moments to observe. Anyone can behave well while receiving what they want. The real test begins when they are denied. This does not mean you should constantly test people or manipulate situations to expose them. You do not need elaborate games. Simply pay attention to natural moments. Life will create enough evidence. Your role is to notice it. Do not become addicted to labeling people as good or bad. Labels can make you careless. Once you decide someone is good, you may ignore warning signs. Once you decide someone is bad, you may ignore evidence that contradicts your judgment. Observation keeps your mind flexible. You can trust someone and still remain observant. You can like someone and still notice their weaknesses. You can disagree with someone and still understand their motives. You can forgive someone and still adjust your boundaries. This is what mature, strategic thinking looks like. You are not trying to become cynical. You are trying to become accurate. Accuracy is more useful than optimism. Accuracy is more useful than suspicion. Accuracy allows you to interact with people based on reality rather than fantasy. When you understand someone accurately, you know what to expect from them. You know which responsibilities they can handle. You know what motivates them. You know what triggers them. You know what they value. You know what they avoid. You know what they are likely to do when pressure appears. That knowledge changes the way you communicate. You stop using the same approach with everyone. Some people respond to logic, some respond to recognition, some respond to independence, some respond to structure, some need time. Some need directness, some need reassurance, some are motivated by status, some are motivated by security. Understanding this does not mean manipulating everyone. It means understanding that people are different. And once you stop expecting everyone to think the way you think, you become much better at predicting behavior. The deepest advantage comes from observing without immediately reacting. When you can watch a person's behavior without needing to approve or condemn it, you begin seeing details that emotion would normally hide. You notice the pause before they answer. You notice the sudden change in tone. You notice what they repeatedly avoid. You notice who they respect. You notice who they fear. You notice what makes them defensive. You notice what makes them excited. You notice what they pursue when nobody is watching. And gradually, the person becomes less of a mystery. You begin seeing the pattern behind the personality. You begin understanding the motive behind the behavior. You begin predicting the reaction before it happens. And when you can observe without rushing to judgment, you gain something far more valuable than the ability to label people. You gain the ability to understand them.